Today's episode starts with a very exciting announcement because today we're going to be talking about how to prepare your business if you plan on getting pregnant and starting a family. Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I'm Samantha Fackler, your host, business mentor, brand strategist, and someone who believes that building a business is one of the most spiritual journeys you can take. I am here to help you grow your business through proven strategies and aligned practices, so ultimately you can make more money while being in a state of ease. Now, why me? I have worked with over 100 companies and almost 14 years in the brand and marketing space. I've worked with brands that you, your mom, and your grandma know, but I am also spiritual. I love astrology, I keep crystals in my desk, and I'm a Reiki master. So I bring an extra little flavor to this conversation. Let's get into it. Now, I am not pregnant, but I am announcing officially that yes, my husband and I are going to start trying this year. Now, this is something that he and I last year decided, second half of 2025, it just makes sense. But most importantly, it feels really right to us. And I know that not everyone chooses to have children, but today's episode, I'm going to be sharing about, if you do choose to have children or you do have a major life change that will shake things up, how do you prepare for that? Especially when you don't know what that's going to be like. And that's probably the scariest part, right? Because there's complete uncertainty on the other side of that change. And we can only prepare so much. So I'm going to be sharing how I've been restructuring things in my business and preparing for that future change, knowing that I am going to become a mother for the first time, at some point. And what have I done in my business so that I can kind of enter that with the most grace and flow so that my first baby, which I consider the business, continues to stay healthy and thrive, while I do have a maternity leave where I go, where I won't be fully on for several months and then come back, but also come back, slightly changed as a new person with a new family member. So it's really exciting to share and to open up about it. I really haven't come across a lot of content out there about this. So I really hope that it reaches the right people, the right women entrepreneurs who, are thinking about this. Because for me, when I thought about like, okay, we're going to try and get pregnant in the next year, when that thought really settled into my brain, I also felt a ton of panic and fear because I was like, how is that going to affect my business? How is that going to affect the profit, the money coming into our household? How can I continue to run my business, but also be a mother and, set things up so that when I do enter that uncertain period, whatever balance that looks like, that I know that I've done the things I needed to do so that I can have a bit more flexibility when that time comes. I'm going to talk about all the changes in my business when it comes to my team, my business structure, how I'm thinking about mat leave, even my brand and offers. I'm also going to cover some personal changes that I've made in the last 6 months as we gear up for, entering this time, the second half of the year, really starting to try. So, yeah, with that, let's get into it. You know, it's so exciting, right? To think, oh my gosh, I could be a mother. And that's a totally new identity that I have no idea what it's going to feel like once I'm in it. And I understand that we can only control so much. And the entry to motherhood is probably one where surrender becomes very important because there's a lot that you won't be able to control. Knowing this, I like to come from the standpoint of like, okay, well, what can I control? What could I potentially optimize so that I have a more smooth journey from who I am today to who I am tomorrow? And that is when I took a hard look at my business and how it was operating. And again, this was the end of last year. And you've heard me talk about my rebrand and how I've rebuilt my business this year. Well, this is why. I looked at it and I thought, there's no possible way that how I operate my business today can also be how I operate in the next level that I'm moving towards. And I had to take a step back, which I love to do about 2 times a year, around in the middle of the summer and then around, the holidays. You generally have a break, you have a pause moment. For me in this, I saw that I needed more team members, I needed more systems, more automations, but more importantly, I saw the level that I was moving towards and the level that I wanted my business to be operating at in like 5, 10 years' time. And I knew that what got me to today and to that point was not what would get me from that point to the future. So, how could I collapse time in a way between now and the future? Well, I'm going to do things that that future state needs, and I'm going to do them now. So, for me, that actually started with team members first and foremost. I already had a small team, but I knew that some team members were going to need to be replaced because I just needed to be operating at a higher clip. And while I loved certain team members, they could not operate at the performance that I needed. I needed to move faster, clearer, with more organization. And I got this lesson from my father-in-law, who is a CEO coach as well. But if you're thinking about changing a team member or letting someone go, you already should have done it like 2 days or 2 weeks ago if you're thinking about it over and over. So I knew that piece, and actually some team members did cycle out naturally, which worked out well. And I really took them with grace because I just knew that I needed new team members who were going to take me to the next level. Even with that, I know that I'm going to be, probably adding maybe one more team member before the time that I do go out on mat leave, whenever that does happen, because again, I'm not pregnant right now, but I, want to make sure I have the right people in place, because I know that once you have the right people in place, it still takes a little bit of time for onboarding and to get into those rhythms and then to iterate those rhythms and make sure they're really optimized for success for everyone's time and effort and energy. Besides team, I also knew I wanted to update my business structure because I was making enough where it made sense to move from an LLC to an S Corp. And this is a huge, huge thing. If you are making enough where an S Corp makes sense, again, I can't tell you that. This is not financial advice. You need to talk to your CPA and bookkeeper, but you absolutely should switch to an S Corp if you can, because you start paying yourself payroll. And what that means is you pay into taxes. And what that means is that if you do go out on disability when you are a new mom after birth, then you do get kind of like a maternity payment. I believe it's like pregnancy disability or something that it's called, which is slightly offensive. But also, I get it, right? You are unable. Some people can't move. You're like bedridden, recovering after birth. So that is huge because as I was thinking about this too, you want to make sure you're set up for mat leave. And the more time you have to prepare, the better, because you can start putting money away for your own mat leave so that when you do go out during that time, you don't also have this burden of pressure of, oh, how am I going to pay for things because I don't have any money coming in because I'm not working. So you need to look at your business and figure out, okay, well, how can you pay yourself during that time? And part of that is some of this structure, boring stuff in the background. So for me, I did set myself self up as an S Corp. I made all of those changes this year. It was a lot of work. Of course, it was a small investment in bookkeeping and accounting and getting everything squared away. But now that we're here, oh my gosh, it feels better. And of course, I knew I was going to have to do that anyways. And this is the big key lesson that I want you to take away. If you know that you need to do a big thing like change your business structure or rebrand, do it before, ideally, you get pregnant or have kids. Because think about it, you have the most amount of solo time right now. You actually have so much time that you probably don't even realize and won't even fully appreciate until you have kids and that time is gone. So use the time now for things like this. Besides team and business structure, the next big one was brand. And you've heard me talk about this a lot this year, but I knew that my business did not look on the outside like what it felt on the inside. I have marketing advisory clients who are Fortune 100 companies. I have women entrepreneurs as my private clients. I love them. They're the best. We have so much fun in our sessions. And I am at a caliber with brand and marketing that is really, really high. And when I looked at my business from the outside with fresh eyes, I was like, oh man, we're just we need a little glow up here. So I decided it was finally time to invest in a rebrand, and not just a brand refresh, but like full blown new website, new templates for everything, new, any touch point that someone comes into contact with when it comes to my name or my business, it is now branded. That is a shit ton of work. Okay. It's a lot to go through, even if you do hire out a designer, website developer, all that good stuff, because you still need to make really key decisions. You need to look at the strategy. You need to make sure that all of your time and money that you're investing in this rebrand is worth it. So there's also the strategy and the work that goes before the new website, the designer, all that good stuff. And I've talked about this in the past, so I'm not going to go too much into it. I highly, highly recommend looking at the rebranding podcast that I've done, in May of 2025, if that's your journey. But this was so key. And now that my brand is out there, oh my God, it feels good. I'm getting clients who are ready to work with me right away. It's not like they're trying to negotiate on pricing. It's very clear, like, I am worth this. I know I'm worth this. And now it finally looks that way on the outside. So that's been pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie. I also rebranded the podcast. So Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur was under an old name in the past, side note. And of course, it was one of these things where I always knew I was going to change the name. But I decided, you know what? Let's do it with the rebrand. Let's just roll it all out at once. Was it a ton of work over 5 months? Yes. To do a new brand, new website, new podcast, new offers, and change the structure of my business and bring on new team members. Yeah, it was. And it was a lot of what a lot of people call masculine energy. So I talked about this. I think it was episode 4 or 5 on the podcast, masculine versus feminine energy. Masculine is very structure, system oriented, task oriented, problem solving. Feminine energy, much more flow, creativity, intuition. Masculine is doing, giving. Feminine is receiving, right? And like really in flow with things. So yeah, I was more in my masculine energy of sorts, if you will, for about 5 months, doing all of this, making all of these decisions, doing all this on top of client work, might I add. So it was so worth it though, because now that was through, I have so much space on the other side. That wrapped up. Everything launched on June 3rd, and I am recording this in June, and my schedule looks totally different. I feel like I'm working a fourth of the time that I was before, and I have so much flow in my days. I'm kind of working like half days, honestly. I have a lot of space, and it feels really good to me because I am preparing for another thing that I also always wanted to do before I had kids, which is a solo offsite where I'm taking a full week in Amsterdam alone. Well, I'm technically, my husband's staying there too. He has a work offsite. I'm doing my offsite, and I get 5 days to just think and envision and be at this higher level when it comes to my business so that I know, even more about this next chapter and what I want to build and how I want to build it. So this switch between masculine and feminine for me has been so beautiful and awesome, and I get to appreciate both. I love how I set myself up for success. Even when I was in that more masculine phase, there was also a lot of moments where I had to channel the more feminine, where I had to take breaks, where I relied on practices like acupuncture and yoga and meditation so that I could handle the level of work that was on my plate and the level of pressure that was on my shoulders at the time. Now with that off, I'm more in my feminine, in my flow with a ton of time. I'm gardening more, I'm cooking more. Not to say that those are like necessarily women's roles, but that's how I'm choosing to fill some of this empty time. Also, more writing, being outside, more reading. And this is a really important one too. As you become closer to becoming a mother, closer to conceiving, I read all these books that were about like you need to make space in your life for a baby. Because if your life is completely chock full, it's going to be really hard mentally to think about how a baby might fit into things or might fight its way into things. So this has been a huge change for me too. Because when I was going through that 5 months, whenever I thought about even the thought of like conceiving, it felt like a lot to me. It felt like I couldn't handle it because my plate was already super full. Now that I'm on the other side of that and I have a lot of space, and we are entering the second half of 2025, which is the time that we wanted to conceive anyways, it's like, oh, wait, actually, this makes sense. Like, and my body feels more open to it physically. Now, this has been important to me too because I really wanted a pregnancy. I know that pregnancy is totally different for everyone, and you can't really plan for pregnancy. It's just going to be how it's going to be. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't have all this stuff when I was also pregnant. Of course, not everyone has that luxury. You might be pregnant now and you might be having to go through these major projects. And, if that's the case, make sure you're supported and resourced and still listening to your body. You can do it, absolutely. But for me, we did have the luxury of time. And so I wanted to take that luxury. And I'm really happy we did. Now, personal changes. So I don't typically talk about a lot of personal stuff on the pod, but I think I'm going to start to a little bit more because I get a lot of these questions from women. We're not business robots. Like we are humans at the end of the day. And I've made a lot of personal changes in the last 6 months, gearing up for this big shift. For me, it started with health and nutrition. End of last year when I was kind of having this moment where I was like, wait, things need to change. I have a lot of big projects I need to do. I was also kind of crashing at the time from a really busy season of back-to-back travel, buying our first home together, and honestly just pushing it a little too much when it came to work. So health and nutrition was like number one for me. And we've actually been working with a fertility nutritionist. Shout out Jackie Simek. You're amazing. And she has been a really helpful guide in this too. And, before we met Jackie, we cut out alcohol and we tried to start eating healthier. I think we did like okay. Like we were good about cutting out alcohol. That was really easy for us. And because especially like moving to the suburbs, like we're not surrounded by dive bars and like a downtown atmosphere anymore. So it's very different, but also a very welcome different. And, it's quieter. We wake up earlier. In March, we started waking up at like 5:30 a.m., which we're not really morning people. So it was a little bit of an adjustment, but it opened up so much more of our days that allowed me to go through this busy season with a lot of grace and flexibility too. And nutrition wise, like, yes, we were trying to eat healthier, but it wasn't until we met Jackie and actually started working together that our nutrition really kicked it up a notch. We learned more about like incorporating fiber into all your meals and that, sugar is like really huge when it comes to fertility and overall health, metabolic health, right? And when you're optimizing for fertility, you're also just optimizing for vitality. It's just good for you regardless. So it's been feeling really, really good. Eating healthier, not drinking, and also strength training. So last year I was a little like Pilates queen, mainly because there was a Pilates studio underneath our apartment. So I loved it. Like the commute was fabulous. But I got a little tired of it after a year. I'm not going to lie. And I do think I go in those cycles with exercise. I think some people find their thing and stick with it for years on end, and that's totally cool. But for me, I got like a little bored after a year. So I switched. I started strength training in January. I love it. I feel much stronger. I can actually do a proper push-up now, which I couldn't, I kind of struggled to do before. And I've learned so much about how that actually does help your body, help fertility, help prepare for pregnancy and the big Super Bowl event of giving birth. What other things? And then changes in the home, right? So we bought a house and we've been kind of thinking about like, how do we set this up for kids? And of course, part of me wanted to buy like really gorgeous designer furniture, but that might not be kid proof. So those are little things that have been in the back of my mind too. And I think ultimately, as we close out this episode, it's just, I think it's like starting to think with a bit more intention once you are like, okay, we do want to have a kid. I think we're going to start trying soon. Maybe you're already trying, maybe you're already pregnant. How can you set yourself up so that you have more flexibility and flow down the line? And sometimes that does require a bit more masculine energy up front to structure things and figure out systems. One last thing I will share, because we've talked about so far, changes in your team, changes in your business structure, as needed, of course, changes in your brand, changes in your offers, doing things that you've always wanted to do in your business, whether it's rebranding or a solo offsite, all this stuff so that you can plan for a mat leave whenever that does happen. And then personal changes. We've covered a lot in this episode: health nutrition, strength training, preparing the home environment. But I think as I review all of these, I think one of the biggest has been really getting the right team in place and getting our systems together in place. Like, how can we make things more efficient? How can we optimize it? How can we do less live time needed? How can we automate more things? How can we use ChatGPT for some of these things while maintaining marketing and branding that's super authentic and branded? How, I've also cut a lot of things. I've said no to people. I've said no to clients that I just didn't feel like it was a fit. And I'm really happy I said no. I have said yes to clients who are freaking amazing and I love them. And I'm so grateful that we work together. I think one thing I want to add here is offers. I also had to look at my revenue strategy and I had to see like, is this sustainable? I think these prices actually don't reflect where I'm at. And especially after investing in my brand and getting my systems in order and my team, I started to look at the numbers and realize, I'm underpricing. I actually need to bump up prices. So I will be bumping up my private mentorship prices towards the end of this year. I encourage you, if you've ever thought about private mentorship with me, now is the time to get in and start. And, again, it's all because of revenue strategy. So I think a big part of this too is like looking at your business, looking at all the strategies that you have in place, your brand strategy, your marketing strategy, your offer sales strategy, your revenue strategy. I know it sounds like a lot of strategy and I never really want to say that word again, but these things make sure that you are set up for success. And I am so happy that I spent the time and the money and the energy into doing all of these things, because right now I feel like I've really entered a new chapter in my business. It feels open. It feels like it's in flow. It feels successful. It just feels really good. It feels, again, like the outside matches the inside. So I hope you got something out of this. If you are in this similar place, I would love to hear. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'm Samantha.Fackler. If you want to work together as a private mentor mentee, reach out. You can apply on my website. If you apply, we always set up a discovery call to make sure that it's a good fit before we move forward. So there's no risk, no commitment if you do apply, and the link is in the show notes. And if you're curious about setting yourself up for mat leave, or if you know that you're going to be coming back for mat leave soon, I have helped so many women make those transitions. And I do just want to share like one thank you to all those women if you are listening, because I have learned coaching all of you, and all of that has also fed into all my decisions and what I've changed for myself and my business in the last 6 to 8 months. So with that, thank you for being here. I'm your host, Samantha Fackler, and I hope to hear from you soon.